It's lesson 4. Let's talk about verbs. Verbs are the most exciting part of speech. Why? Because they include action. We're going to talk about 3 types of verbs: action verbs, linking verbs, and helping verbs. You're going to need to know all 3. First, the basics. A verb expresses an action, a condition, or a state of being. The 2 main types of verbs are action and linking. First, action verbs. An action verb expresses action, some kind of movement or event occurring. The action may be physical or mental. Let's look at some examples. First, the band marches onto the field. This marches is going to be a physical example. Next, the audience expects a great performance. Expects here is the verb. It would be mental. Next, Danny plays the trumpet like a professional. Here we have plays, and it would be physical. And then we have he travels around the country with other musicians. Travels would be physical. So you can see how sometimes you can see the action and sometimes you can't see the action. But either way, something is occurring. Next, let's talk about linking verbs. A linking verb links the subject of a sentence to a word in the predicate. Now the verb is where the sentence is divided between subject and predicate, if you remember that. There are 2 groups of linking verbs: forms of to be and verbs that express condition. So here's a couple example sentences. First, we have the instruments are safe in the bus. Here, are is a form of to be. Next, the students seemed bored during the long trip. Seemed is our verb here, and it expresses condition. So here's a list of examples. The forms of to be are am, is, are, was, were, be, been, being. You are definitely going to want to know all of these. Am, is, are, was, were, be, been, being. Memorize that. Some verbs that express condition. Now this is not all of these, but here's some examples. Look, smell, feel, sound, taste, grow, appear, become, seem, remain. You may not think of these as linking verbs. You may think, wait, that's an action verb. But here's an example. If the students look excited, then it's not that they're looking with their eyes, but it's their appearance, their condition that looks excited. For example, again, maybe the trash smells awful. Now, that trash is not literally action-wise smelling anything because that would be weird, but that condition of the trash is smelling awful. So that's what I mean by verbs that express condition. Okay, so those are your basic linking verbs. Now, helping verbs are next. Helping verbs, also called auxiliary verbs, are combined with verbs to form verb phrases. This is where it really gets fun. A verb phrase may be used to express a particular tense of a verb, that is the time referred to, or indicate that an action is directed at the subject. So let's look at some examples. First, we have the stadium is filled to capacity. Here we have the verb phrase is filled. Is a verb and filled is a verb. So together, that's our verb phrase. To break it down, our main verb is filled, but our helping verb is. So is filled together is a verb phrase with a helping verb and a main verb to make it up. In your next example, we should save a seat for Jeff. Save is our main verb, but we're helping it with the verb should. So our verb phrase is should save, made up again of a helping verb and a main verb. Here are some common helping verbs to write down: be, can, have, may, might, must, shall, should, will, and would. Now notice that some helping verbs can also be used as main verbs. So you might have seen is and thought, but that could be a main verb or a linking verb. Well, let's look at a couple examples. For one, Sandra has conga drums at home. Here, has is functioning as a main verb. But in our next sentence, we have has as a helping verb. She has practiced her drumming all summer. We have the main verb here as practiced. We can't just ignore it. And so we have has as a helping verb and then practice as the main verb. So here in our first example, we just have one verb. Down here, we have has as a helping verb giving us a verb phrase. Here's why verbs matter in writing. Action verbs can create a vivid, interesting picture of a scene. And you can't have a complete sentence without them. If your sentence doesn't have a verb in it, then it's not actually a sentence and you need to fix it. So remember, you have three types of verbs: action, linking, and helping. They're all verbs and you can't have a complete sentence without at least one of them. Alright, let's look at the practice in your notes. First, just do this paragraph and then we'll check in after that. Alright, let's see if you found all the verbs. Every November, bands from across the country visit New York City for the big Thanksgiving Day parade. Even on cold days when strong winds or light rain might scare away spectators, the parade is on schedule. The crowd lines the parade route and will stay until the last float has driven out of sight. As bands strut down Broadway, drum majors pound their drums, members of color guards rhythmically wave their flags, and baton twirlers toss their batons into the air and catch them as they twirl downward to the ground. Meanwhile, giant colorful cartoon balloons like Betty Boop, Spider-Man, and Bart Simpson, and other favorite characters, are overhead. For young children, the parade remains an eventful experience and becomes a fond memory in their adult lives. Alright, if you're okay with that, go on to the next section. Alright, let's see how you did on this section. Number 1, our verb is are, which is a linking verb. In number 2, we have travel, which is an action verb. In number 3, we have vibrate, which is an action verb. In number 4, we have sense, which is an action verb. Number 5, we have measure, which is an action verb. In number 6, we have were and named. Named is an action verb, and were is a helping verb. In number 7, we have might be rated. Rated is an action verb, might is a helping verb, and be is a helping verb. And number 8, can produce. Can is a helping verb, and produce is a main verb. If you have any questions, please ask before going on to the rest of your practice work.